Hey YouTube, this is Tom at TM Aquatics, and I hope everyone's doing great. It's been a while since my last video upload here on the YouTube platform. I just haven't had a lot of time for myself, the fish room, uploading and editing and making YouTube videos, but things are going to change. Now for those that are channel members, they already know some of the struggles I've been challenged with here in the recent past in regards to work and the amount of travel I've been doing. But the good news is things are about to change for me here in the very, very near future, and I'm excited. It's going to give me a lot more time. I'm going to have time to focus on the fish room again, start uploading some YouTube videos on a regular and consistent basis, and I'm excited. But anyways, today's video, I'm going to take you around the fish room. We're going to talk about certain tanks only today. I'm going to highlight tanks where there's been some changes, maybe first spawn here in the fish room, things like that. And then we're going to talk about some fish food. We're going to talk about a couple of other things. A lot to cover, so I do hope you stick around and check this one out. Alright YouTube, now the first thing I'm going to do, because I haven't shown this tank in a long time, we're going to head out that door, out of the fish room, and we're going to go check out the 120-gallon tank that's out in the rec room. I've had a lot of requests from people just to see how the fish are doing, how the tank's looking. So we're going to head out there, and we're going to check out this tank. Alright YouTube, here we have the 120-gallon albino threadfin Acara tank that's out in my rec room. I currently have 6 threadfin Acaras in this tank. I picked these things up when they were about 1.5 inches from Dan's Fish. They're now 6-inch plus, or at least the males are 6-inch plus. But I have 3 males and 3 females. I got very lucky in the male-female ratio. Now I did add a couple of flower pots in here and some rocks, hoping to try and stimulate some breeding activity, and it did work. Unfortunately, when the pairs broke off and they all started to claim territories, I quickly realized that 5 feet is not enough tank space for 1 pair, yet alone 3 pair. So I quickly abandoned that, and I've decided not to focus any time or energy on breeding this fish. I just enjoy coming down, watching them. They're just very beautiful, very exotic, majestic looking freshwater fish. I just enjoy them. So no need to breed everything that you keep. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with just having a tank and a bunch of fish and just enjoying their natural beauty. Now also sharing this tank, I have a bunch of CW49 black diamond Corydoras. This is one of the more rare and challenging Corydoras in the hobby to breed and work with. I did have limited success breeding this fish over the past few years, but have decided to move on from it, and now I just enjoy a school of about 24 or 25 of them in this tank, sharing it with these albino threadfin Acaras. Now as far as decorations and decor, I just have a little bit of Java moss coming down off this manzanita branch, moving over into some narrow leaf Java fern, tied and attached to some Malaysian driftwood. Very basic, simple scape, but it works, and that's the 120. Alright YouTube, we are now back in the fish room, and we're going to kick things off by talking about this 40-gallon breeder where I keep my L471s, the mini snowball Pleco. And I just want to report that I had my first trapping that I saw from this group. Now it didn't result in a spawn, but that's still positive and encouraging. These are all young fish, they need to figure it out, and it's not uncommon for them to have several unsuccessful traps before they actually start spawning. That just shows, and it means that these fish are really reaching the point where they're going to start producing, so it's just a matter of time. Keep doing your water changes, keep feeding them quality foods, and it's going to happen in the very near future. So I'm super excited about that. Alright YouTube, the next tank on the list here is this 40-gallon breeder, and this is where I keep my L236. And in this tank I have both L236 RB Basics and L236 Super Whites. There's only a couple Super Whites in here and about 6 or 7 RB Basics. Now, several weeks ago, I was a vendor at the Quad City Swamp in Davenport, Iowa, and I did remove 2 fish out of this group. They were both L236 RB Basics, and I sold them at the swap because they simply did not meet my standards in terms of coloration and patterns. I've also identified at least 2 other fish that I plan to remove from the group. With that said, I do plan to acquire at least 3 to 4 L236 super whites in the very near future and add them to the group. They're going to be juvenile, so it's going to take a little time to grow them out, but I think I'm going to slowly transition away from the RB Basics and just focus entirely on the L236 super whites. It's an expensive decision at $175 to $200 per fish, so I'm going to have to take some time to think about it, but between me and you, that's probably the way I'm going to go. Anyways, that's the L236 tank, and let's go check out the next. Alright YouTube, this tank here is another 40-gallon breeder, and there's a lot of stuff happening in this tank. First and foremost, I have 6 L134 leopard frog Plecos in here. I added 7 juvenile high pancistrus contridens to this tank. Those contridens I picked up back in July at the Cataclysm event in Madison, Wisconsin. And then since then I've also added 9 juvenile L306s. So this tank has 3 different groups of Plecos in there. And as you can tell, it's not the cleanest tank. It also has a bunch of blue dream shrimp in there. Hundreds and hundreds of blue dream shrimp. They're all over the place. Now, my plans for this tank are to remove the L306, which is a Pinaculus, and Pinaculus claustrofella, something like that. I'm going to remove the 9 L306, keep the contridens and the 134s in here. I'm going to move the 306s down into this tank where I have my L183s and a few longfin super red bushy nose, which is not a fish that I focus on. I'll remove the longfin super reds. I might get out of or sell them and get rid of them completely, but I will continue to keep my L183s in there, and I'm thinking the L306, they would make great tank mates, and I think that's what I'm going to do as soon as I remove the L134 fry out of this tank. Well, that's the hope anyways. Down here, where is it? So one of these 2 caves here, either that Pleco ceramics cave or this cave here, and I forget which one it is. We have our first spawn out of this group of L134s. The eggs look good. It's a first time spawning for the male and the female, so we'll see how he does. Hopefully the dad does his job. It's been 2 or 3 days now. He has not eaten the eggs yet. So I'm excited to have another group of L134s breeding here in the fish room. And we'll find out in a few days if we had a successful hatch, how big the hatch is. And I'm excited because it's been a while since I had my last 134 spawn in here. If the hatch is successful and I end up pulling those L134s, then I will also probably tear down the tank and search for the 9 L306 and remove them from this tank, and again put them down in that 40-gallon long down there. But all good news happening here in this tank. I just wish I could keep it a little cleaner. I've got 3 filters in there and a lot of tannins coming out of that wood, but the parameters, nitrates, ammonias, nitrites, non-existent. So healthy environment, even though it doesn't look the best, but all good news coming from this tank here. All right, YouTube, the next tanks that we're going to talk about are these 360 breeders here. We have exciting things happening in each one of them, so we're going to talk about each one of these tanks. And we're going to start out with the top tank where I have my group of L260 Queen Arabesque Plecos. Up here in this top tank is where I'm currently keeping 16 or 17 L260 Queen Arabesque Plecos. It's been at least 2 years since I bred L260s here in this fish room. I did have 27 L260s here not too long ago. And I recently split the group up. I moved 10 of the L260s down to this tank here. And the rest are still up here. So I split them into 2 smaller groups. I've had several spawnings since I've done that. Down here, in this cave right here, this light colored D cave, right now there is a male in there that has a new spawn in there that he's protecting. Behind him is another female who's trying to force her way in to try and spawn with him. Now, I said I've had a few spawns from this guy, but before I've been able to get to the fry, he's always had another female in there spawning, and the other fry that are already hatched out in the cave, they go missing. Now, I don't know if any of them or how many of them are out in this tank trying to survive and grow up. I know there's at least one, and if I had a camera that would focus on it, I know he's either sitting on top of this cave or this cave. I just saw him not too long ago. He's only about 3/4 of an inch, so I know I have at least one juvenile swimming around in there. I'm sure there's more, but I have to start pulling the eggs out of this tank after they're hatched and before that male gets another female in there trapped. It's all good news. I mean, they're actively spawning. There's several females in here that want to spawn with him, so that's all good. It should run like clockwork here as soon as I can get things sorted, but I don't know if he's going to spawn with that female or let those other eggs hatch before he lets her up front to do her thing, but all good news. So again, I'm going to have to watch this real close, and as soon as I see that he's got a spawn in there and as soon as they hatch, I'm probably going to start pulling them so I can get, you know, some decent numbers of L260 growing out here in the fish room, but all good news. All right, the next 60-gallon breeder here, this is where I have my L136Bs. Now, for those that are not familiar with the L136, there are 3 different grades or categories of L136. The L136A, the L136B, and the L136C. And how you differentiate between the different, grades, if you will, is how big their spots are and how many spots they have. The fish that have the finest spots and the most numerous spots are the L136As, and those are the lowest cost options for the L136, followed by the Bs that have fewer spots and larger spots, and then followed, of course, by the Cs that have even fewer spots and even larger spots than the Bs. L136Cs, really good L136Cs right now are selling for anywhere from $500 to $800 a piece for the really good ones. So they're not something that a lot of people have just due to the cost. It is a price wall that a lot of people just aren't willing to commit to unless they're really serious about the fish or have friends that can get them at a relatively decent and more realistic cost. For me, the 136Bs are kind of the sweet spot for me. I recently picked up 4 new L136Bs, 2 at the Quad City Swap, and I got them from my friend Chris at Shooter's Fish Room. And then I picked up 2 more really nice 136Bs from George at Nationwide Aquatics. I had an unboxing planned for that. I had technical difficulties and ended up not posting that, and that was just a week or so ago. So anyway, sorry about that, George. But we do have, like I said, 136Bs in here, and again, I just recently added 4 more. Now, good news. Of the 136Bs that I already had in this group, I did have my first confirmed spawning. I had eggs in there. They were in here for 3 days, and then sadly they disappeared. So that's all positive news. We're moving in the right direction, even though the male more than likely ate the eggs. It's still good. They need to figure things out, and that's going to happen. As I mentioned earlier, they're going to maybe have a couple of dry runs with trappings, and then on the first couple spawns, maybe the eggs they disappear. Eventually, they usually figure it out. And, you know, if they've been spawning for a year and they're still eating the eggs, then maybe it's time to pull the, dominant male, try different male, mix things up, something. But anyways, that's all good news. First trapping. They're probably getting ready close to the next trapping because it's been a few weeks. But anyways, I'm really excited about that. Really looking forward to breeding this fish here in the fish room. Can't wait for those new L136 that I just recently picked up to grow out because they are really, really nice looking fish. So anyways, all good news here in the 60-gallon breeder as well. All right, YouTube, and then this last of the 60 breeders here on the bottom of the rack, this is where I keep my L181s and L400s. The L181s, the Peppermint Pleco, they're an ancistrus species, and the L400s are another high pancistrus. And both of these groups have been spawning for me. I recently had a spawn out of my L181s, and that's the first spawn that I've had in about 9 months, so it's nice to know that they're back in business. And hopefully we'll have a bunch more spawns to follow. Unfortunately, the eggs disappeared after 2 days, but again, I'm not worried about it. I'm confident we'll have more successful spawns with them here in the near future. The L400s, I had 2 confirmed spawns from them. The first spawn, I ended up with 11 juveniles, and they have all now been moved up into this 40-gallon grow-out tank where I have a bunch of L134 leopard frog Plecos and L494 Picoltia Rio Perus. There's 8 more juveniles in this fry box here, and they are small juveniles, maybe 3/4 of an inch. And then there's at least 1 or 2 juveniles that I've seen in the tank with the adults. So in all, I know there's at least 20, and likely there's at least 21 L400s, but I'm excited that that group is finally starting to produce as well. So yeah, all good news with all 3 of these 60-gallon breeders. All right, the next 2 tanks on the list is this double stack 75-gallon tanks. On the top tank here is where I keep my L519s and my L494s. And the 519s are not spawning yet, but in this brown Euro D cave right there, I have a male on eggs right now. They spawned 3 days ago. I'm a little concerned though, because there's a bunch of assassin snails in that cave as well. And I'm concerned that the assassins are going to decimate the spawn. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I might end up pulling them. Something I got to think about. So anyways, but these fish are back on eggs again after taking the past 8 or 9 months off. So it's nice to see that we have some productivity out of the 494s again. And then down here with the L397s, in these 3 bottom red caves, you can see a fish sticking out of one of them. There's 3 males that hang out down here, and there's always at least one of them that is fanning a spawn or having wigglers in their tanks. Now with that said, I've not had a lot of success keeping the fry alive. And the most recent 3 or 4 spawns, I've lost about 90% of the fry, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I've never had that happen before, but it's just like clockwork. I'll pull the fry, put them in a fry box, put an air stone in, piece of wood, catappa leaf, things that I've been doing for years, and their bellies just swell up, and they just start dying off couple at a time per day. So not really sure what's going on there. I got to sort it out and figure it out. So the last spawn I just pulled about 2 days ago, and I have them up here in this fry box on this 40-gallon breeder. And in that 40-gallon breeder I have a bunch of L134s, but I have 25 L397 fry up there. They've been in there for a few days now, and so far they look good, and I haven't lost a single fish. So I don't know if there's something in this water. I don't know if something is leaching out of any of these rocks or caves or wood or what's going on. But if I leave the fry in this tank, they don't do so well, and it appears moving them to a different system, so far anyways, knock on wood, that they're all doing fine. So we'll see. We'll see how they do and how many I end up with. But again, all good news with these two 75-gallon tanks, 397s and the L494s. Alright YouTube, well I think we're going to go ahead and end this video right here. I know I mentioned in the introduction that I was going to talk about some fish foods, but I think I've decided to just maybe do a complete separate video just focused on some of the fish foods that I'm feeding my Plecos here and how I condition them and get them ready for the breeding season. It's just, this video has gone on a little longer than I had really expected, so I think it'll just be best to maybe follow up and do a complete separate video on that fish food. So anyways, I appreciate each and every one of you taking time out of your day to watch one of my videos. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to post them down below, and I'll do my best to respond when time allows. If you like the video, hit that thumbs up, and if you feel like following along on the TM Aquatics journey and you think this might be a channel that you enjoy, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's absolutely free, doesn't cost you a darn thing, and I'd greatly appreciate your support. So anyways, thanks again for taking time, and until the next one, we'll catch you all later.